I'm ready, ready for the big ride, baby. I really apologize for saying that. Welcome to Hey Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, this is Liam, and this week we watched Face Off, released a mere 3 weeks after Con Air and the final film in Nick Cage's Beige Volvo Trilogy. Face Off takes us in a direction nobody was expecting when they watched The Rock in 1996. Cage plays Castor Troy, who is being hunted by Travolta's Sean Archer after Cage killed his son Michael. But I argue his biggest crime that day was that 70s porn star mustache. After a grueling few years, Archer gets his man. But wait, there's a twist. One final surprise from Castor. So now Travolta plays Castor, playing Sean Archer, and Cage is playing Sean Archer, playing Castor Troy. I mean, on paper, this had to be one of the most batshit premises in Hollywood at the time. But in case it's not batshit enough, let's add a future prison and the boots from the Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh, and we'll throw in the Punisher for good measure. I mean, this film is ludicrous, but some may argue in a good way. And again, in a film where Cage is doing his best to be the grossest version of himself, and we will talk about that whole choir scene. Nothing feels more gross than Nick Cassavetes packed himself from the rave, tongue-kissing his sister right before a final shootout. But for everything that happens in this film, and we may or may not cover it all, I mean, linear is not our strong suit. I want to start right from the beginning and ask you, Liam, how do you feel about the Archer family's weird face-stroking bit? I mean, I'm all about personal space for me, so that gets a little uncomfortable.
No, I mean, I do love this film for many reasons, but there are a handful of things I've listed that I genuinely despise about this film, and one of them is the fucking hand face thing. I always hated it, and I hated it even more going in. The two things I was worried about going into this, because I remember very specifically my emotional... it was a really strong reaction to both the hand face thing and to Alessandro Nicola's performance as Pollux Troy, which I just despise. I absolutely there are a few performances on screen, especially in like a big budget movie and one that I otherwise love, where I can pick out a performance that I truly hate. The thing he does with his little finger, the wave, every single line delivery I despise, but I still don't hate him as much as that goddamn hand across the face thing. It's weird, especially when he does it to his, because obviously by the end of the film there's been a lot of weird stuff with him and his daughter. The stuff where it's like, okay, it's Castor, but it's Castor as Sean, like I fucking his own daughter. It's weird. And then when he does the facing at the end of the film, he just kind of catches a lip with a finger. I'm like, no, I'm not happy about that at all.
Just brought this straight to the end now. They've just brought this random boy in. It's going, okay, we're going.
Oh, Adam, yeah. This is the boy of
meeting you, Michael. Basically.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Same haircut, looks the same. Might be the same fucking kid as far as I can tell.
We're all going to stroke his face. This kid must be sitting there going, I'd rather sit with the drug dealer terrorists, thank you.
Yeah, and like you said, that's not even mention the fact that this film is so insane that I was going to say the implied incest, but they tongue kiss pretty aggressively. It totally goes under the radar. It's so brazen that until this time watching the film, I didn't realize they were brother and sister. It was like my brain just wouldn't accept it. And then Betha goes, she was going through the facts. She goes, you know they're brother and sister. I was like, who? She was Nick Cassavetes and Gina Gershon. And I was like, well, they can't be because they kissed. She was, oh, no, they're brother and sister.
They're brother and sister.
God damn, what the fuck is up with this whole film? Has such a weird relationship with sex, but it doesn't seem to be aware of it. And I think it's down to the fact that John Woo gave a lot of free rein to the actors in this film. He's just like, I've got my idea for like the story beats and the action, but otherwise he was giving them free rein. And I'm not sure if it's a cultural or a language barrier, but it just seems to have just passed him by. The fact that there's all these really, really fucking mental sexual politics.
Oh, dude, it was so off the rails with all the and how is that for I guess poignant at the moment. Danny Masterson trying to...
oh, my God.
So Danny Masterson plays Carl, who's trying to sexually assault Jamie Archer in the car, who is now facing up to 30 years in prison for sexual assault.
Yeah. He's, if you don't know, he's the kind of, I guess, the tough kid from That 70s Show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's up for like a whole bunch... Like, he's literally being found guilty, I think. And it was like the day he was found guilty, I was watching him... sexually abuse or tried to sexually abuse Sean Archer's daughter in her car, which is disturbing. But all I could think was, how fucking dumb is this kid? I mean, if you're going to sexually assault a girl, and I'm not suggesting anyone does, of course, you certainly don't do it outside her father's house, and especially when her father happens to be a police officer. It's like, Jesus Christ, he should just be shot on the spot for the sake of the species. Just fucking kill him there and then. Again, a really odd and, dare I say, a pointless moment in this film. It's like really sexually charged, hints at, all this. I don't know what it's hinted at, but it just doesn't belong in the film at all, as far as I'm concerned.
No, not at all. Could I mention as well? You mentioned, and he was a big problem for me as well. I always get his name wrong. Alessandro Nivoli.
I love that. We're really going after this film hard early doors, but make no mistake, we do like this film.
Yeah. Oh, no, we'll get to the good parts. Let's get the bad parts out of the way. You said you didn't like him. Now,
he's a good actor.
Yeah, I think he did well in the fact that it makes me think, it's like, he's so grimy, Pollux Troy, and he's so under his brother's, like, demean in thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Demean is probably the wrong word, but he is definitely a guy that pulls wings off flies. He's got a woman in a basement somewhere he's just torturing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you definitely feel that from him.
I just hate him. I hate the performance. I can see where you're coming from. Like, if he doesn't annoy you that much, he does give off that successful, creepy vibe.
Yeah.
Where he's like, demean, like you said, it's probably the wrong word, because I think he's basically being given free reign by his brother. His brother loves him so much that he lets him get away with anything.
He still lives in his brother's
Of course. And that's part of the reason his brother lets him get away with all that stuff, because he's so clearly the dominant brother in the relationship. But I hate his performance. And like I said, this guy was in The Many Saints of Newark. He was in American Hustle. Like, he's clearly a talented actor, but he is up there with, I know you're not a Matrix fan, but there's a character called Mouse in the first Matrix film.
I know Mouse, yeah.
And I hate him. I hate him so bad. Like, the Matrix is one of my favorite action movies of all time. And as soon as I see him on screen, it completely takes me out of the movie. And I have the same problem with Pollux Troy. The issue with Pollux Troy is that he's in this movie a lot more. Yeah. But as I said, I get it. This film is a movie of, to say this is a movie of big performances is a massive understatement. And, Alessandro Nicola is going for it. I just don't like where he's gone. Luckily, I like where just about everyone else goes, especially, most importantly, Nick Cage and John Travolta, who are both fantastic in this film.
We will get into, because that's going to be the bulk of this first part of the podcast. But did you recognize Tommy Flanagan as well?
Yeah.
I always... this and Gladiator in 2000. When he pops up, it's always weird to me, because I always expect him now to see him with a bit of facial hair or a bit gruff or anything. Mm-hmm. So when he's just looking fresh faced, but he's still got his scars, it's really weird to see Tommy Flanagan just appear out of nowhere.
And he's weird because he plays one of those roles in the film where he's one of the goons, and he obviously has a distinctive look for obvious reasons. So you kind of remember him, but he doesn't do anything in the film. He doesn't do anything. He's just kind of there. And you think there'd be enough time. Like, again, I'm coming back to issues with this film. It's like, it's self-indulgently long, this film. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it has no business being 2 hours and 20 minutes. And when I was rewatching it, there were long stretches where, like, I thought this movie had more action in it. And you know what? It does have loads of it. It's got tons of action, but it's got tons of fucking everything. Yeah. It's such a long film that it's like 70, 80 minutes of it is action. But then you've still got another hour and change of just like nonsense of setting up. And I get it. It's high concept. But this film does not need to be longer than 100 minutes. You could get this done 100, 110 max. 2 hours, 20 minutes. I was like, Jesus Christ, fucking get to the point.
Would you have preferred this film when it was meant to be set? Because it was meant to be a future film.
Well,
because the premise of the face-off. But John Woo...
It doesn't make any sense.
John Woo wanted it to be set in present day. To capture the emotional drama. Now, I don't get that.
I get it, because there is... Even though a lot of it is unsuccessful and unintentionally funny, he really does try to kind of dig into that. There are hints at times at something a little bit deeper than what we get on the surface. Like, certainly towards the end of the film, you have the two characters, Sean Archer and Castor Troy. You can see that their kind of lives are starting to blur. Yeah. That, and I think Cage plays it a little bit more overtly as Sean Archer, but even Castor Troy, he's kind of got this whole thing with his wife, and it's like, oh, maybe I'll take on this life, and this idea that their kind of lives are blending into each other. but the film just doesn't have the nuance to play it off. So it all just feels clumsy, and all it does is just drag out the runtime. But if you are going to make something you could kind of attach to an emotional level, it makes sense that he would want to set it modern day. The problem is none of that really works. But then what it subsequently means is that the sci-fi stuff just seems fucking bananas. Like, this is a time when floppy disks are still rather prevalent, and yet we're led to believe that in a couple of days you can turn Nicolas Cage into fucking John Travolta. But the thing that always got me is that, you can just turn him back afterwards with no ill effect. There won't be any scars. Yeah, it'll be fine. We have the technology.
They turned around and said the only guy who could do this was Colin Feore. One of his name was Walsh, or Malcolm Walsh.
Yeah,
but he died. But right at the end, they're going, "Oh no, it's fine. We've got all your notes because your wife told us, so it's fine. We can change you back."
Its notes are well extensive. It's absolutely
also, like with everything else as well. Oh, by the way, there's a secret future prison. Just
that's what I was going to say. Like, I feel like I had kind of mentally accepted the face-off thing. It's like, it's dumb as shit, but we've all had like more than 20 years to deal with that, and we've just kind of accepted. This time, what really hit me was, it was like my brain had never really accepted that there was a prison from the future in this film. And all of a sudden I'm watching, I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this prison? Like, it's from a completely different movie. And it literally is, because like you said, the original script was supposed to be set in the future. But I was like, this looks like Demolition Man. And then I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, that is the prison from Demolition Man. And then my wife goes, are those the boots from Mario Brothers? I think fucking are. Everything is from the future. And it's just dropped into this movie that's supposedly set in 97. Give me a fucking break.
All they were missing was the cartridges to put into the
100%. Would it have been that weird in this film if they had Goomba guards? I just don't think it would have been at that point. At this point, I'm accepting anything.
I mean, that can't be... I know you did a bad thing. You go into a prison, but like, there's no daylight for those guys. There's no nothing. Their hour of recreational time is walking with heavy ass boots around a circle.
But yeah, that's the thing though. There's no explanation of it. There's no, like, they don't really dig into the idea as like, this is like some kind of experimental top secret. They just can't, and maybe there is a line which mentions it, but you just kind of just swept away to this prison from the future, and you're just supposed to accept it.
They wink at the camera as well every time they said it. A1 prison. A1 prison. Get it? It's an anagram of nowhere. Get it? Get it? A1 prison. Get it? Get it?
You understand it, right? You get it. It's like they spend far too much time doing that rather than, I don't know, actually explaining what the fuck the deal is with this prison at the end. And then even at the end, when he gets out of the prison, and usually there's like a big issue. It's like, oh no, I'm in the middle of the sea. I'm fucked. I'm stuck here. He just jumps off anyway and swims. And we're just like, what? He just swims the fuck to land? And he's what? He's just spent supposedly like a month in surgery. None of this seems to matter.
Not just that, he's not Nicolas Cage, mind. He is unhealthy, quite a bigger guy. Sean Archer. He still has Sean Archer's insides.
Yeah, but that's weird though, isn't it? Because they've taken all of his... Is it purely aesthetic, or does he suddenly have... we're talking Nick Cage just after Con Air. He's filmed Con Air. He doesn't take off his top as much in this film, but, he's in great nick. Yeah. When they make the change, does that make him as fit? But like you said, he's got the same lungs.
I can imagine Castor Troy being able to do that, but Sean Archer drowning halfway through, like...
Yeah, I just love the idea. Like, he gets into a fight sequence and he's saying, like, Jesus, I'm absolutely fucked here. I'm absolutely blowing. This is ridiculous. But yeah, unsurprisingly, they don't dig into that too much. But then again, none of this makes sense. We just accepted it. It was like, like I said, the future prison, the fact that the technology makes zero sense. I never questioned it when I was younger.
We accepted, we got this magic technology, we'll take a scar away. We got this magic technology, we'll move your love handles. We'll give you, like when he's going, laser shears to move this. We'll do this. We put a microphone on your larynx. It's all good. It's all fine.
Yeah, and we all just go, yeah, that sounds about right. And in fairness, they pulled it off pretty well, like in terms of on-screen. Like one of the clever things they do, they had those two amazing dummies, mannequins, whatever you want to call them. They're actually super impressive. And what they do really smartly in that sequence is they establish the mannequin early doors. Like they could have easily had Nicolas Cage laying in the bed, but instead it's the mannequin. So when you see it, you're like, oh, that's just what he looks like. It's just one of those like simple tricks in the film that I think kind of helps sell that sequence. Yeah. And even though, and I think the reason we kind of just accepted it back in the day It's the fact that it's an awesome sequence. When they start to, when he takes off his face, all they do is cut around the side. They don't do any. They apparently no work to kind of remove the muscles, the connecting muscle tissue.
There's no
it's like your face isn't just kind of connected around the outside. You don't just cut around the outside. And, fucking off you come.
What I loved as well, they went, we can do all this because we've developed this new face lifting technology. And then he shows him this weird plastic Tupperware thing with some bits of modeling clay on top of it.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Went, this is state of the art. Dude, that is not state of the art.
Well, the thing is, and you do get it throughout this film, this is back in that era where a lot of people still didn't have computers. So when you see anything with computers on screen, everything is based on the idea that you don't know how a computer works. So I think back in the day, like Hollywood just thought we can get away with this because most people just don't get it. Like every time that, as bad as that technology is, it's not as, I don't know, distracting as when anybody's looking at a PC in this movie. If anyone's looking at a PC, you're like, what the fuck is going on here, man? It's like there's just like a big delete button and it just deletes all the files. Like nothing makes sense from a PC perspective. But back in the mid-90s, it didn't matter because most people just didn't have a PC. And we're like, oh, well, I reckon maybe in the police they've got supercomputers and stuff. It's like we just didn't know, so we just accepted it. And the same with the technology. We were just naive and dumb enough apparently in the 90s to just let all this go.
Speaking of naive and dumb, right? Moving a bit forward, if your boss all of a sudden has a bit of a personality shift, okay, which is great. For some reason, he woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. That's absolutely fine. Would you call him out of it in the middle of the office in such a way saying, have you had an operation to have the stick surgically removed from your ass? Like, would you call your boss out on that? That's a bit...
It's a bold move for sure, but it does speak to one of the more interesting concepts of this film in so much that, I don't know, everybody prefers Castor Troy. Everybody does, even his wife.
He's having fun. Castor Troy, no matter what he's doing, whether, I guess, he's sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl in the choir, or whether, I don't know, whether he's planting a bomb, he's doing anything, he's having so much fun.
I mean, yeah, that is a weird way to open this film, and we really should mention the fact that what we assume is a teenage girl, he just goes over dressed as a priest and just grabs her ass and obviously pulls the famous face that he does.
Yeah.
But again, just one of those moments that you get in this film and you just kind of accept.
Do you think he was late because he took her for some private...
Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're implying. This film is a dirty, dirty film, and as I said, it goes as far as the relationships because everybody prefers Castor Troy. And it's like, there's a few people going, oh, he's acting a bit weird. And they almost, because, right, he comes in, and it's, the more you think about it, it's pretty fucking dark. He shows up, he nails Sean's wife. So the guy who murdered their son shows up, not only has sex with his wife, but has sex that she clearly enjoys a lot more than she does with Sean. Yeah. His daughter prefers him. All the people in work prefer him. And if he could have just kept his shit together, you're like, I don't know, man. I think Castor Troy would have been a pretty good Sean. I think everybody would have lived relatively happily ever after if the plan had gone ahead. Sean had defused the bomb and say Castor, or this is always confusing, Nicolas Cage as Sean Archer had died in prison. Say he just dies in prison, he never gets out. Does Castor just go on to live a relatively happy life? Because we mentioned the fact that they hint that there's this kind of blur between the two personalities, and somehow this absolute sex-mad Castor Troy has been appeased by Joan Allen as Eve Archer, who, make no mistake, is homely as fuck. She is somehow my age. They make her look like 62 in this film. She's been sold as some kind of sex symbol, enough to tame Castor, apparently.
Well, no, but
I'm just not sure about it.
Because you're seeing these things, that sooner or later, Jamie's getting it, unfortunately. And he's mentioned as well, like, the fact that he just wants to use the resources of the government to further his terrorist agenda. So
I thought he said he wanted to go straight, though.
I don't think Sean Archer all of a sudden is going to go, you know what, I could live. He's just going to become then just a bigger douchebag just for a while using the resources of the...
I mean, there is a possibility that, eventually he goes off the rails and this is just, Castor Troy being Castor Troy. But I like the idea that there's enough of a crossover that he's taking on, again, that implied like he's taking on enough of Sean's personality that he's like, and he does mention his brother. It's like, oh, we're going to go straight now. And it's like, I like the idea that there's a different movie where Castor Troy just becomes Sean Archer and just lives like a really fun version of Sean's life, where his wife is happy, his daughter's happy, everything works. Like, oh, the boss is in. I fucking remember Sean used to be a dick. I fucking love Sean now. I know what happened to him. He's the business.
I see what you're saying, but he said that to Pollux at the beginning, but then he's on the call to him. He's going, listen, brother, listen. What you're not getting is we have to get the resources of the federal government. Then maybe I'll get my face back. And he's really.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying on the basis that he's not getting the face back.
Yeah, but even if he doesn't get his face back, because there's no way he's getting his face back, is there? Well, at that point.
Maybe I wanted to believe it because...
don't think Castor Troy as Sean Archer is not becoming Sean Archer. He is basically just doubling down, and he is just going to use this new face to be a big...
I mean, you're almost certainly right. He's almost certainly going to become a douchebag. We've seen enough of Castor Troy to know he's a bit of a wrong'un. But I love the idea that there's a different version of this movie where where Castor Troy just becomes like a really fun version of Sean Archer. Yeah. And it's just like it just runs for 2 hours and you get to the end, you're like, wait, what the fuck happened? Is he just Sean Archer now? Is he just like doing well at his job and fucking his wife? This is really weird. I mean, he smokes for sure, but other than that, Jesus Christ, he seems like a good hang. Well, like Sean Archer, the original Sean Archer, he does not seem like a good hang. Castor Troy, as himself, definitely doesn't seem like a good hang. He's a bit too much with the sexual thing. It's such a bold move, like right at the start of the film. What would you say, or if I allowed you to suck my tongue? And you're like, oh, dude, I don't want to see anyone sucking it. You're doing it in front of your brother as well. What the fuck?
Oh my god!
But by the time you got John Travolta playing him, I'm kind of like, I know, man, Castor Troy's okay.
I don't know if I want Travolta to say "suck my tongue" though.
I tell you, well, that's the weird thing about this film, and something that goes like for obvious reasons. When people think of Castor Troy, they think of Nick Cage because Nick Cage is in the initial incarnation, he is Castor Troy. But John Travolta plays much more of this film as Castor Troy. Like in terms of runtime, John Travolta is the bad guy in this film. I know it's all very confusing when you start thinking about it. But he's playing the bad guy for what, 80-90% of this film?
Yeah.
And I tell you what, he is absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about Nick Cage recently with the other podcasts, and he's brilliant in this, and he's obviously swinging for the fences. But Travolta really does match him beat for beat. And I think they got it the right way round for the runtime. And I guess it brings it back to my point that I want to see kind of Castor Troy with this happy ending playing Sean Archer. Is the fact that John Travolta is just a more likable screen presence. Like, I love Nick Cage, but there's always like a barrier because he's so fucking mental. Whereas Travolta he's got it turned up to 11 for sure, but he's just a likable screen presence. And I think I'm not sure if this movie works as well if the characters are swapped, which again, I know is a confusing sentence. But if John Travolta starts as Castor Troy and I don't think it works. No.
But I argue as well, right, that Travolta he's just elongating his Vic Deakins character from John Woo's previous film, 96 Broken Arrow. Because it is literally pretty much the same character, just a different suit.
It is a little bit, but Travolta's had like the weirdest career because obviously he was this big star in the 70s and 80s, and then he just kind of disappeared. And he famously had his like career resurrection in Pulp Fiction. But then after that, it's like he's done Get Shorty in 95, the aforementioned Broken Arrow 96, Phenomenon 96, Michael 96, I mean, he's busy as fuck. Mad City 97, Primary Colors 98, Thin Red Line 98, General's Daughter 99. And you're like, wait, fuck it. Like, you've got some hits and misses there. But you're like, oh, Travolta is properly back. He's like inching towards A-list movie star again. And then all of a sudden you get Battlefield Earth 2000. And it's like, it just fucking derails him completely. Yeah. And you're like, well, he was a star. He went away, he's come back, and now he's gone away again. But then all of a sudden, it's like Swordfish in 2001. You're like, wait a minute, is he back? And then you get this domestic disturbance. And then all of a sudden, then he disappears again. But then you get, I know we're probably not the biggest fans of it, but Wild Hog in 2007, Hairspray 2007, Bolt 2008, and Taking a Felon 123 in 2009. They're all pretty big hits. But then he disappears again. And now I'm convinced in my head that Travolta's kind of done as a movie star. But this is what he does. Like, is he going to just show up again and become like an A-lister? Because he's got that charm and that screen presence. If you can find him the right role, he can make a comeback. And it's not the same as Nick Cage, but they've got oddly divisive screen presences in this. In like Travolta's more naturally charismatic, I think, for sure. But John Travolta in the wrong film is a fucking train wreck. He's just, some people, they can elevate bad material. John Travolta can't. If the film is bad, he is bad in it.
Because I think Nick Cage is always engaging to watch, no matter what piece of shit he's in.
Exactly, yeah.
He is very engaging to watch because he doesn't believe he's in a piece of shit. He believes he's in the best film that's going, or he's managed to convince himself that he is the greatest actor in the world. But he's always engaging in no matter what he does. We saw it. You sent me a trailer for something the other day with Joel Kinnaman, something like Riding with the Devil, or
that absolutely looks like a Liam movie with Nick Cage and Joel Kinnaman.
Yeah,
I mean, straight away, I'm like, I just love those guys.
For an hour and a half, they're riding around in a car, and then right towards the end, Nick Cage does his best Nick Cage, where he just starts screaming. And what the fuck is going on? But again, he is, even in the trailer, he is engaging to watch. I have no doubt.
Well, Nick Cage is great at that in so much as, like, especially with a trailer where you watch it and you're like, I don't know. I have no idea whether this is going to be good or bad. I feel like, generally speaking, you and I, we've watched thousands of films, thousands of trailers. And it's not, a perfect science, but generally speaking, you can watch a trailer and get a pretty good idea as to whether it's going to be decent, bad, whatever. With a Nicolas Cage trailer, it's fucking tricky, man. Like, I watch that trailer, I'm like, I mean, is that going to be good or is that going to be the worst film I see this year? And it could literally be either. It really could, even after watching a 2-3 minute trailer. I want it to be good because it looks fun, but make no mistake, that film could be absolute ass.
Yeah,
and that's the magic of Nicolas Cage, and John Travolta doesn't have that. He needs better material. I don't think, like I said, if you put John Travolta in a B movie, make no mistake, that film is staying a fucking B movie. Yeah. But like I said, he's really good in this. So,
in this, I've seen this film a few times, as we've mentioned previously. I've never recognized Dubois before, or Dubois. Do you know who he is?
Who's that, Dubois?
Yeah, the one who helps Nick Cage escape prison. Doesn't say
I totally forgot to look that up. I was watching this with my wife, and I kept saying, I was like, I know that guy. Who the fuck is that guy? I was like, I gotta look that up. And the guy with the curly hair, yeah?
No, that's Tom Jane, the guy with the curly hair. That's Punisher.
Oh, Tom Jane, that's of course the Punisher. Jesus, when you mentioned it at the start, the Punisher, I was like, something's going on with my head. Of course, that's Thomas Jane.
No, Dubois, however they call him. He's the dude who attacks Nick Cage at the beginning because he's
the guy who gets like the brain zap thing.
Yeah, he said.
I think that's the scientific term, the brain zap thing. Yeah,
the Pollux. I don't even know why that big ape hit me. Are you serious? The day he went down, he had a sex sandwich with his wife and his sister. That's a guy named Chris Bauer. Now, the name probably doesn't mean anything to you, but you've seen Chris Bauer in pretty much everything. He was the Sheriff Andy in True Blood.
Oh, yeah. Didn't get that at all.
No, I said, but he's been in fucking everything. I was so shocked that all of a sudden, because I didn't. But it's the same, like Colin Feore, the Walsh. He just appeared out of nowhere, and that dude is in fucking everything.
I love the idea that there's these guys, because obviously what you usually get is the conversation that the biggest movie star by box office of all time is actually Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah,
because he's been in so many of the Star Wars films and stuff, and obviously now with the Marvel films, all this.
Although Stan Lee probably beats him now, I think.
I don't think he's been. I still think it. Because
I think Stan Lee has the biggest box office.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's an interesting thing because he sits in the middle ground, because very few of the movies, for Samuel Jackson, where he would have been which would have made the most money, he's not the biggest star. He's like a part of a wider cast. As big as like even Nick Fury. He's still, like, in terms of the billing, he's usually like 8th, 9th, 10th on the list kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I love the idea that there's going to be a guy who's just, like you say, he just plays a tiny role, but plays a tiny role in a million films. And his combined box office is like one of the highest in Hollywood. Yeah. There must be someone out there who's like he's not even like a secondary or tertiary character. He just shows up in the background, but he shows up in a background in like Lord of the Rings, the fucking Marvel films and stuff. And it's like, dude, my films have combined to make $700 billion.
Since like the late 70s, that's got to be Danny Trejo, hasn't it?
I mean, Danny Trejo's been in a lot, but I feel like you've noticed every film Danny Trejo's been in. The problem is Danny Trejo never sneaks in unnoticed. Okay, never. Yeah. Whereas there's going to be a dude, like, you know, I didn't realize that guy, what was his name again, sorry?
Colin Firth or Chris Ballard, the was.
Chris Ballard, like, I wouldn't have noticed him in 101 movies he could have walked in. Yeah. And I just love the idea that he's been in like every movie I've ever watched and I've just never noticed. And he's like, oh, dude, I'm making so much. I'm on like minimum wage, but I've got a combined box office of 700 billion. It'd just be fucking awesome.
Another one, right? CCH Pounder. She was the one.
That's a fucking name, that is. I appreciate the fact that you delivered that with a straight face.
So she was Zoe Saldana's mother in Avatar. Loads of as well, but she kind of broke all sorts of conventions, didn't she? I want to say like the Geneva Convention, where she's showing Sean Archer, Castor Troy. He's going, "Oh my God, you're keeping him alive. Relax, he's a turnip." And then she just puts her cigarette out on his arm.
Yeah. That's like that's just an acceptable thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then again, that's weird. But then he, like 2 minutes later, he just wakes up. It's like, how bad are the fucking, you know, the scientists are obviously good. They're swapping round John Travolta and Nicolas Cage with apparently no after effects. But at the same time, they get that wrong. I mean, they've really dropped the fucking ball on that.
One of the best lines in the entire film, right? With the new anti-inflammatories, healing takes days, not weeks. What? Like ibuprofen is better all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's a great line. But this is a movie of great lines. And, you know, to bring it back to John Travolta, he delivers a lot of them. Like, it's like looking into a mirror, only not. You know, he's got all these, like, unique intonations and deliveries. I find it really interesting trying to guess who's following whose performance. Like, is John Travolta following Nick Cage's performance or vice versa? I can't imagine Nick Cage following John Travolta.
No, so basically what they did, they spent 2 weeks together and they both agreed on mannerisms that both of them would do.
Yeah.
So I don't think one was following the other. They kind of agreed, this is how Archer's going to act, this is how Castor's going to act. But, and then one of them plays her up more than the other, depending on who they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, they're both great as Castor Troy. I mean, you know, Sean is actually a pretty boring character. So it's bizarre that Nicolas Cage has less to do in this film because he's got to play it straight. And as the straight man, it's a relatively thankless task. He's always just a bit sad, a bit stone-faced. And then whoever's getting to play Castor Troy at any moment, whether it be legitimate Castor Troy or Castor Troy pretending to be Sean Archer, they're having a fucking time in their lives, and they're both fantastic. Travolta does tiptoe into Ace Ventura territory on occasion. I don't think he's quite as natural at giving as big a performance as Cage, which I don't want to be. I mean, who the fuck is? I don't think anyone's as natural as Nick Cage is giving a big performance. But they're both huge amounts of fun, and like you said, it is that weird thing looking back that the one giving the biggest performance for the longest time is Travolta. It just so happens that Nick Cage comes in hot, grabs a girl's ass, pulls the face, does this tongue-sticking thing. Everything he does, I mean, we said Travolta is turned up to 11. Well, Cage is turned up to fucking 22 in this film. Even when he gets, the weird thing, when he gets put into a coma and he gets smashed against the side, even then he's acting. He's not just knocked out. He's kind of half smiling. It's fucking weird.
I had to feel for Travolta in a couple of the scenes, though. Like, because he's got to do the scene where he loses his kid. I mean, in such a terrible way as well. He's hugging his kid, and all of a sudden, his kid's head just pops.
It should be sad, but it's so OTT the way.
But what I mean is, so he's got to do that scene, and then further on in the film, then he's got to do the scene where he's playing Castor Troy, but it's still Travolta, and he's going, look. your kid was an accident. It's fine. Why didn't you kill yourself or let it go? So you have,
another great line. I mean, it's cold as fuck, but it's a great line.
But you have Travolta then delivering these two performances basically as the same face, the same character.
Yeah.
It's weird. Hey, I wanted to ask as well, changing the subject. If you didn't know John Woo directed this film, as a John Woo fan, would you know John Woo directed this film?
I think so. Again, it's weird because one of the things you'll notice is that we've been talking about this film for quite a long time and we've hardly mentioned any of the action sequences because the concept is so insane. When it does become an action film, and it does, like I said, it's so long that there's often quite long gaps between the action sequences. But when it does, this feels like pure John Woo to me in a way that is earlier Hollywood films maybe didn't. And it was like, I was trying to think, is his lo-fi brand of Hong Kong action, is it like the greatest fit for, US cinema?
That's why I wanted to bring this up.
But he did quite well, because so obviously he got this largely because of A Better Tomorrow in 1986 and Hardballed in 92, both with Chow Yun-fat, both massive hits over there, and internationally for sure. Then comes like Hard Target in 93, which is a bonkers film, but it doesn't necessarily scream John Woo. Same with Broken Arrow, I'd argue, in 96. And then I think of like Face Off as being this, and Mission Impossible 2 as being the quintessential Western John Woo movies, as far as I'm concerned. And it's not just because there are doves in this, but there are fucking doves. Just the way he put it this way, there's a shootout earlier in the film where Castor Troy and his brother are on the plane, and it is again a proof of concept for just how much better physical effects are, because the plane, just all it does is just ease into a hangar.
Yeah.
And with CG, that's not an exciting scene, but because they did it for real, everything explodes. And again, one of those classic things about 90s cinema, and certainly John Woo films, is that everything explodes. You only need to touch it and it fucking explodes. It's something we've lost with modern cinema, and it's a bit of a shame. But in that sequence, once the plane goes through, everything explodes. Nicolas Cage jumps out of the door, dives out the door and starts shooting, which of course makes no sense. But then Pollux Troy, the biggest nerd in the film, does the same thing. And you're like, oh yeah, this is a John Woo movie. Everyone's just diving out of doors and shooting guns, even Pollux fucking Troy.
So for me, it wouldn't be the diving. I mean, take the dubs away from it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. As soon as you see the dubs, you go, oh, there's John Woo. No, it's, you see two or three standoffs, and you go, okay, oh, there's a couple of standoffs in this film. That might be a John Woo.
Dare I say, a couple of face-offs?
But then you automatically go, oh, this is a John Woo film. Mm-hmm. And before they fire a gun, they have a spin.
Oh, of course. You've got to have a spin. You've got to have a dive.
What do they do in this film before they shoot?
Well, it's really interesting with this film because, all right, Nicolas Cage has one move outside of, obviously shooting a gun. He can flip over onto his back. He's realized, like, physically, he's able to do that. He does it, as far as I can tell, about 4 times in this film because he can do it. Because other than that, I don't think there is a movie in which the stunt doubles get more screen time than Face Off. I'd like legitimately, I couldn't find it online, but is there a movie, like the final kind of action sequence, the bit with the
boat.
With the boats. Yeah. There's 2 amazing explosions in that. Like, again, it's almost unbelievable that that's in the same film. It is nothing but stunt doubles, and it's not even subtle. And it's a great throwback that this is just before like the CG was there to kind of cover these things.
It's like I said in The Rock, when he's running away from the tram. That is definitely not Nick Cage. I mean, he's taller and he's got more hair. It's the same in here when those 2 guys flip off the boat.
Oh, but the thing is, the camera stick, because the shot's so cool. And there are two explosive set pieces back to back. It's almost ridiculous that they were like, oh, we're not just having one, we're having 2 with the speedboats.
Yeah.
The second one, when the speedboat, again, defies all physics, flips up into the air, you get Sean and Castor flung from the speedboat, but the camera just stays on it. And of course, it's an impressive technical feat, and it's an impressive set piece and stunt. But they are on screen for like a solid 2 or 3 seconds, clearly stunt doubles. Like, it's just not even subtle. Yeah. There's one bit earlier in the film where a dude gets shot with a shotgun. You can see the strings in the back when he gets pulled away. Clear as day. And it was almost like in this film, they're just like, fuck it. We're just going to give the stunt guys their due. They get an outrageous amount of screen time. And it's simply down to the fact that physically, obviously Cage and Travolta, probably the latter more so, just couldn't pull these things off.
No, not at all. I did like, with the standoff, right? I did like the little nuance as well when they're both either side of a wall and they're talking to each other, and that's when you get the "kill yourself or let it go" comment.
Mm-hmm.
And then they turn around. Was it? Oh well, let's just shoot each other. And then they turn around and they're both staring at reflections of their enemy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Until they both fire and then magically dodge the bullets to come through the.
Again, it's another one of those things. Like, there are cool moments, and visually, that's like a really cool moment, but it just doesn't have the kind of narrative nuance you want it to. I think the movie thinks it has, but doesn't. But it doesn't matter because it's so much fun, and again, it just works on a purely aesthetic level. It takes itself so seriously. It's so overall. It's so absurd. But because they're delivering these truly absurd lines, you just can't, you're just totally on board. When they're like you're literally facing off at each other and you get the mirrors, it's so incredibly on the nose. Be like, yeah, this is maybe one of my favorite action set pieces of all time. So it's fun.
You kept saying that, obviously saying the title. I love the hill that the producers were trying to die on as well for this film, because they wanted to take the slash away from Face Off because it didn't make sense to them. But because people will think it's a hockey movie.
That was John Woo's issue, wasn't it? John Woo.
No, John Woo wanted to keep it.
He said, no, we have to have the slash.
Yeah, but that's what the producers wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Whereas he wanted
it because he didn't want people thinking it was a hockey movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the hell's John? Is hockey popular in Hong Kong? But then I remembered he made Sudden Death a few years earlier. That film has got tons of hockey in it. All I can think is he's come to America. The first film he's made is Sudden Death, and he's suddenly
Sudden Death? He made Hard Target.
Hard Target. So, fuck, why have I got Sudden... Who made Sudden Death? Which one's the one with the hockey in it? Is that Sudden Death? That's not John Woo, is it?
No, that's Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death.
Is that not directed by John Woo? Have I just made that up? I think I just narratively wanted... Right. I've made that up to make my argument.
To make your point, and I've literally just taken your legs out from under you.
Well, someone had to, because otherwise I would have just kept going down that fucking rabbit hole. Now I need to see who directed Sudden Death. I'm so upset. I just in my head that made sense. It's not the Hyams. Oh wow, yeah, I got that completely wrong. I just mixed those two.
I've looked at Peter Hyams previously and I thought, you know who he looks like?
John Woo.
John Woo.
Well, yeah, in that case, fuck knows where he's got it from. But yeah, he's obviously got really caught up on this idea that everybody's going to see Face Off and think, no, it's a hockey film. I'm not going to go and see it. I was like, dude, I think they'll get that this isn't a hockey film, but I don't know. And again, I never noticed that it was called Face/Off. Never noticed.
No, I mean, to be fair, it just looks like a graphic, doesn't it? It's just Face Off. I mean, yeah, but the fact is, when you look at it on like IMDb or Wikipedia or whatever, it is Face/Off.
I don't know. But then, this is a film where nothing makes sense. Although I did appreciate that this film had another one of those amazing 90s tropes, the bad guy's lair, which just looks like a nightclub. Immediately it reminded me, remember in The Crow, they had the same thing where they just show up and their lair is a nightclub. It's like in this, it's a really depressing nightclub where only you and your friends and their wives go. And it's like they try and kind of palm it off as being cool. And of course, you've got brothers and sisters making out in there. So it's a pretty fucking weird nightclub, but I don't know, man.
The bad guy's lair where the walls are made of glass. Like everything is glass.
Everything is glass. Everything is glass. And, that idea that as soon as you show up, you just take the strongest drugs ever. What the fuck was in that drink that they gave?
Whatever that was, because that hit hard and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, really bad.
Me and my wife still use that line as well. I don't know why. Whenever we talk, we just go, "Yeah, take his face off," and you do the movements when you do it.
Is it the finest use of a title in a movie ever? We mentioned the fact that obviously this whole trilogy, they do a great job of getting the title in the movie. Welcome to Con Air, welcome to The Rock. I'm going to take his face off. And I'm wondering, because I always, when I think about that sequence, I imagine him as being Castor Troy, but of course he's Sean Archer in that point. So I think they need the excuse of the drugs to get him in the mindset to deliver that performance, because it's Sean Archer wouldn't deliver that line. whether it's Nicolas Cage playing him or Travolta playing him. So they're like, well, we're going to have to throw... I'm like, are you just throwing drugs into the mix so that you can have the face-off? Like, if so, it was worth it, because like I said, it might be the best use of a title in the movie ever.
We mentioned it last week, didn't we, that we're going to bring in a new section going, did they mention the title in the movie? And there you go. They did. Absolutely.
And as I said, it's one of the best ones. And it's weird. It leads into what at the time was a pretty controversial action sequence, because it was all centered around the kids. Is it David or Adam? And obviously a lot of it's from his perspective, where he's got the earphones in and is playing, Over the Rainbow and stuff. And you watch it now and I'm just kind of like, it's okay. I have no idea why it was such a big deal having that.
They utilized that same premise in, what was it, Fast 20 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Ethan puts it on the kids' ears and he's listening to like the Muppets or something.
Yeah. It's a perfectly decent action sequence, but the best ones are basically all the best action sequences are between Travolta and Cage. They're better when it's just the two of them. The larger set pieces, they're fine, but they just feel like kind of standard 90s fare for the most part. It's when it's the two of them and it's linked to the narrative, that's when the movie's at its best. And, there was a long break then between that action sequence and then the big finale. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of narrative, there's a lot of plot. But once you do get there, that's when I think the movie truly goes peak John Woo at the end. When they get to the church, and again, the complete lack of nuance, all of a sudden it really leans into religious iconography. Yeah. And it's like, they're aware that they haven't dealt with this for the rest of the movie. And they're like, oh, this really is the ultimate battle between good and evil. It's just like, you're just throwing this in like 2 hours into the movie. All right, fair enough. Then you get the doves. But not only doves, there's also a lot of seagulls and a lot of pigeons, apparently. There's just a lot of fucking birds because they're at the beach.
The production team turned around to John Woo and said, we can't get you the 45 doves you need, so we found some seagulls and some pigeons as well. Will they do?
Yeah, we've got eight doves, we've got 12 seagulls, and we've got about 42 pigeons, so you just got to deal with what you've got. But there's no way...
Nobody turned around and said, John, you do know that all these birds wouldn't be in the church. No, they'll be in the church.
Well, but everybody would notice that they're in the church. No. Nobody's going to mention or acknowledge all the birds in the church. At a funeral, it's a funeral.
Also, if they're at a funeral, where are the other guests? Are they early?
I have no... And who the fuck has a funeral at a weird church on the beach? Like, you can imagine getting married in there for sure.
And this is the other thing, right? This is where I wanted to take the action set pieces away, take the length of the film away. Boil this film down to the basic part. How long does this film? How many days does this film take?
I mean, well, the big question really is how long does the procedure take, and how long does it take to heal from the procedure? That's the real question.
And also, how long does it take for somebody to die in an office, have an autopsy, get declared dead, and all that crap, and then have a funeral?
Because so basically, what we're saying is this movie takes place over a series of like 7 years.
I was going to say months, but yeah, I'll give you...
no, I was being excessive there, but it has to be at least months.
Lazaro dies, and then the next scene is Lazaro's funeral.
Yeah, they really do cut around.
What they needed to see Adam with his Somewhere Over the Rainbow action sequence, and then when John Travolta brings it up, he's a 16-year-old kid. At the end of the film, he just walks in. Hi, what's happening?
How's it going? Yeah. It's just like he really, really looks like Nicolas Cage. Like disturbingly looks like Nicolas Cage. Like, I don't know, man. This is going to be weird as shit. Because that is the thing. If he grows up and he's taking on his dad's looks, because at the moment when he's a kid, he just looks like quintessential 90s American kid. Like, that's the reason that the two kids look the same. They all look the same as the kid from the what was it? The Last Action Hero. They've all got that.
He looked like the kid from The New Nightmare. Like, yeah.
Yeah, they've all got that same weird ass bowl cut that was all the rage in America for from like 93 through 98 or something. So it's creepy as shit, but I just love the idea that he turns like 18 and suddenly it's like, fuck man, he really looks not only like Castor Troy, but like I used to look for like quite a while. It's pretty goddamn disturbing. I'm not gonna lie, it's opening a lot of wounds for me, dude. This is weird. This was a terrible idea.
He's in the shower in the Archer house just going, are you ready? Ready for
the big time, baby. I can't believe you open with that. So many great quotes in this film, and you open with a song. was like, holy shit.
I went for I did swing for the fences. Again, I apologize for my singing, but
oh no, go for it. That's one of the things we are lacking in this podcast is we just don't have enough singing. I honestly thought you might have gone for another one of those Travolta lines. Well, think about me, this nose, this hair, this ridiculous chin. It's like he's spitting out those, like, he's so good in this film.
But that's Travolta. The thing, isn't it? There's so many lines.
There's so many.
Because, right, I'll bring this up now. We had a message from one of our listeners, from Dan, who got really upset after he listened to the Rock episode because we didn't mention his favourite line from the film.
Well, it's tricky, and it's going to be the same with this. So there's too many lines.
So I wasn't just going to bring one up and get another slating. So I thought, you know what, I'll just sing.
I mean, well, we would literally, with this film, we'd have to make sure we're keeping everyone happy. We'd have to just go through like the top 20 quotes of this film because, as I said, usually there's like that element in my head. Before we start the podcast, I don't know what you're going to open with in terms of, a quote or reference or whatever. But, I have an idea. I'm like, oh, it'll probably be one or two or three. I obviously never would have guessed with the song this week. But with this film, I really wouldn't have been able to get, because there's just too many. There's just too many awesome quotes. And that is the thing, is like, we've spent a lot of time shitting on this film, but it is awesome. It does somehow get away with it. And again, I'm going back to criticisms here, that out of the three films we've done, the Nick Cage films, this one has aged the most. Like John Woo, like, he had his moment, but his style of filmmaking, and maybe because he did go back to Hong Kong and he made, was it Red Cliffs?
Red Cliff, that was his magnum opus, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did two of those. Those are massive international hits. But we kind of over here didn't hear from him again. So his style, which is so unique, has been left in the 90s. And now I associate it with the time. It's like The Rock feels kind of 90s. I made the argument last week that Con Air largely feels timeless. But then you come in and watch this and there's no mistaking it. This is a 90s fucking film. And not in a bad way. As I said, everything explodes. There's doves. It's absolutely ludicrous. It's very hard to tell just how in on the joke they are. I think everyone's taken it pretty seriously. They've just been let off the leash in terms of their performances. And I can't tell if it's a good thing or a bad thing that it's so clearly got its place in the 90s. Like, people look at computers, as we mentioned in this film. There's technology in this film. Few things age films as much as technology. You can be watching a film and it can feel utterly timeless. Then somebody pulls out a mobile phone and go, oh shit, it must be like 2001. And, you get a lot of that in this film. But, I like John Woo's style. I enjoy this film. But in many respects, it still feels like a relic of 90s cinema.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think this film doesn't get made now. That's one of the other brilliantly unique things about this film. If you made Con Air now, Con Air would arguably be a very similar film to what we got in 97. Whereas if you made Face Off now, this film, the 2023 version of Face Off, bears no resemblance to this at all. And I'm not just talking about the weird sexual stuff, which of course would be cut immediately, but the tone, the way it's shot, everything. It would be you're not getting this movie again.
If they make it now, they make it the future version. There's no way around it.
100%. And it's bizarre because we are in the future now. If they were making this, I bet you the original script for this film had it set in like 2018. I bet you it did. It's in the past to us. But if we made it, even now in 2023, if we made it now, we'd set, this film's set in like 2057. It'd have to be.
You mentioned as well about John Woo. Do you know he's back this year with an American film again?
I did not.
Yeah. Silent Night, so I'm guessing it's coming out at Christmas.
I thought his late run had kind of done for him because he had that, we mentioned like he had that run. He randomly threw in like a made-for-TV movie. Like, was it like Blackjack?
Dolph Lundgren.
Like, who does that? Like, he was on this run of like all these massive international movies, and then he just throws in made-for-TV Dolph Lundgren Blackjack before going directly into Mission Impossible 2 and Wind Talkers.
No, I did that.
Bizarre.
So Blackjack, and it was his American remake of Once a Thief.
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah,
because they were going to be TV shows, but then they didn't make it. So they were pilots, but then they became TV movies because they.
Oh, I see. That makes a bit more sense.
But yeah, so why I bring it up as well, Silent Night, is because it all comes back to Cage as well. Joel Kinnaman's the lead star of John Woo's next film.
See, I'm all in. I love Joel Kinnaman. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Like, I think he's like one of these underrated action. I totally buy him as an action star. I buy him as being tough. Like, that's one of the things you got to buy in these movies, is that I just, if he's like the leader of a group, like in Suicide Squad's not a great film, but even the first one, he's one of the best things in it, and he's fantastic in the kind of soft reboot / sequel. And it's a shame he gets killed, but I even mentioned he's one of the best things about the RoboCop reboot. One of the reasons I'm slightly warmer on that film than a lot of other people is Joel Kinnaman. Yeah, I know you're not a fan, but I just think he's one of these great screen presences, and it felt like RoboCop should have been his breakthrough movie, but obviously it wasn't a flop, but it wasn't a massive hit. And I just feel like maybe there's still that chance for that, like that second chance that he'll get that role that could turn him into a major movie star. Because I think he's got all the screen presence in the world, that dude.
John Woo's last American film, without looking it up, what was it?
Oh, it has to be Paycheck.
Yes.
That film is, because that fucking killed him. That film is so bad. That film is aggressively bad. You got to think, like 2003. It was 2003, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, he's coming off Wind Talkers, which isn't a bad film, and he's coming off MI2, which is ludicrous, but 21-year-old me, I was totally on board with that, especially with like the soundtrack, like, which was absolutely killer, like Limp Bizkit and Metallica and all that jazz. And suddenly he's doing a film with Uma Thurman, who I've mentioned before, like, peak Uma Thurman. Ben Affleck, he's a massive star at the time. You're like, fuck, this is a John Woo film. I'm pretty sure it's from a Philip K. Dick short story.
It's a Philip K. Dick one, yeah.
And you're like, oh, this should be great. It's one of the worst films I've ever seen. It is fucking... like, if ever a film deservedly ruined somebody's career in America, it's Paycheck, because that film is rough. It was bizarre. It was on Sky Movies. I think you can watch it on Sky Movies now. And it's worth putting on for 20 minutes. Because, like I was saying a moment ago, like, this film is distinctly like 90s. It just feels like it captures the 90s. You only need to watch Paycheck for like 10 seconds. Like, oh, this is the most 2003 movie I've ever seen. The lighting, everything about it. Only it's the worst possible version of it. Horrible fucking film. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I really fucking hate that film, dude.
I know.
Almost as much as Pollux Troy. Almost.
So, before we move on, I just realized I brought Dan up and I said we didn't do his favorite line in The Rock. And we still didn't actually give him his due and say his favorite line. We just moved on.
Jesus Christ. Well, that ship has sailed, surely. This is a different podcast now. It's not like we're talking about other movies incessantly, like Paycheck, for instance.
I got to give Dan his favorite line. So his favorite line that we didn't mention from The Rock was when Nick Cage is hanging upside down. Mason's hanging upside down. And Nick Cage says to what the fuck was his name? Not Mason.
Oh, he's not going to get there. He's fucked it. You're never getting your quote, dude.
Who's his real name? What's his real name?
Who?
James Bond's real name.
James Bond.
Who the fuck plays Mason in The Rock?
Oh, Connery. Jesus Christ.
Fucking hell.
Oh, I don't think my brain was accepting that you had forgotten Sean Connery's fucking name.
I fucking forgot his name. Fucking hell, Dan. Don't message me again. Sean Connery. Is that...
Dan, it's probably best if you just don't listen to the podcast. You're clearly fucking this up, Dan. Jesus Christ.
Sean Connery says to Nick Cage, then again, Nick Cage says to Sean Connery, are you okay? And he says, was it, of course I am, you fucking idiot, something like that.
Oh, well, you nailed that. You absolutely nailed that. Like, that was totally worth it. Not only did it take ages to get there, but then you didn't get the quote right. No. So, yeah, Dan, just confirm you're not getting your quote, because...
Dan, just watch The Rock.
Just watch The Rock. The film with James Bond. Who the hell plays James Bond again? Unbelievable.
Fuck off. John Woo directed Sudden Death. You can fuck right off.
That's not nearly as bad as you forgetting Sean Connery's name and then spending 20 minutes not getting a quote right. That's much worse. I have to feel better about myself.
I'm editing the fuck out of this.
Well, you're going to have to. Now, I don't know what. Are you going to remove that golden section? I don't know.
No,
maybe
man.
You should. It feels like this is going to be the last thing we do when we talk about the film, because I'm kind of done.
Yeah,
I don't know what else to talk about.
No, I'm done.
I'm done. I'm finished. All right.
Right, thanks for listening.
All right. In terms of favorite scene, there's a whole bunch of scenes you could pick, but it has to be the I'm going to take his face off sequence for me. It just, like I said, I think it is legitimately in the pantheon of greatest ever uses of the movie title in a film. I think the whole drug sequence is there just as an excuse to get that line out of Nicolas Cage. So I just that commitment to getting that line in that format into this film, I'm all for. It's either that or, realistically, it's the actual face-off at the end of the film. It's the one you mentioned with the mirrors and everything. Like, it's pure John Woo. I absolutely adore that sequence. It's the closest thing to watching and it's what we really wanted, is watching a US version of Hard Boiled or one of the Chow Yun Fat,
like film. A Better Tomorrow or The Killer.
A Better Tomorrow. Yeah, that is basically what we really wanted, was one of those films just shifted over to America. And we never really got that. We got hints of it. And certainly in this film, you get hints of it. And that's when I think it's at its best. When you strip away the high concept and you just got two characters having a shootout and it's just pure John Woo action. So yeah, I'm going to say the face-off scene, but really it's the actual face-off scene, if that makes sense.
I mean, I'm with you on a lot of them, but I got to go with in Nowhere or A1 Prison. Get it? It's Nowhere. Get it?
I hate that sequence.
Not that. But when he's when he's got a visitor and he thinks it's Tito or something like that, and the door opens and you just see his face walk in, and then John Travolta just doing his absolute favorite Castor Troy ever. It's like, oh, you look good, and it's
you good looking, yeah.
And it's things like that. And he goes, "I'm gonna go out there, and I gotta go and get a wife to fuck, and you're gonna be in here for the next 100 years." Like, he's just taking the piss.
Dude, you should have done that this time. You absolutely fucking nailed that. Absolutely nailed it. You can't be
really good. And then
I do like that sequence. And again, basically, what we're saying is any sequence where it's Travolta and Cage on screen together, they're the best sequences for sure.
Or any sequence where it's Travolta or Cage playing Castor Troy.
Yeah. I could totally. As good as Cage is as playing Castor Troy, I actually think I prefer watching Travolta playing Castor Troy. I think he might actually be the MVP of this movie. I know I mentioned the fact that he occasionally tiptoes to go in a little bit cartoonish, which sounds ridiculous in the movie, as absurd as this. But I actually think the MVP of this film is John Travolta. I think he's fantastic in this film. It's one of my favorite Travolta performances for sure.
Right, you go, Loves.
Loves, unsupposed Cage and Travolta trying to outdo each other is the beating heart of the film. Number two, a perfect marriage of absurd directorial style and massive performances. So I know it's linked into the characters, but it's not, you could have these two huge performances. I don't think it works if the director's not putting in a huge kind of performance is the wrong word. His movie is just big. Those performances don't feel out of place in a John Woo movie because his style is so stylized. It's everything is shifted slightly away from reality. So, I know we've kind of gone two-footed in on the prison sequence and the technology and stuff. But the fact that, we're watching this 20 plus years later and we really, we're trying to pick this film apart in many respects. For years, I watched it and just accepted it. And the reason is because it's a John Woo film. It's, this is the film with like the fucking doves. And it's got like the two speedboat explosions at the end, which make no sense. You just kind of get on board because it's a John Woo film, which allows these two massive performances to exist strangely in an oddly natural way. And number three, just the premise. It's
was that number one?
No, that was number two, and number three is the premise. It's just like, dude, they're just going to swap faces. Oh, that sounds amazing. Write the script. Surely the idea came before anything else. They're just like, oh, wait, they could swap faces and then they're chasing each other? Genius. And I know originally it was supposed to be like fucking Schwarzenegger and Stallone. I know I'm stepping on facts there. But I'm so glad that it ended up as Travolta and Nicolas Cage because it made it so much more fun. This film isn't fun if it's unique, and especially in 92, 93 would have been a massive deal if it had been Stallone and Schwarzenegger. But conceptually, it makes so much more sense when it's Travolta and Cage.
You know how that premise came about, didn't you? The writers, Mike Wirth and Michael Collery, they're drinking some weird strong drugs in a glass, and then they're just talking. And he's going, "I'm just going to take his face off,"
and then they've just got the film. See, that's the thing. This film is just kind of convincing us of just absolute bullshit. You're like, so the writers, presumably in the real world, are just sitting there and drinking drugs out of a glass. Does that ever happen? I've never seen drugs imbibed in such a way. But you just see it in this film. You're like, oh, okay, I guess that kind of happens. Like people just put, drugs in drinks and they drink it and get really fucked up. I don't know. Does that ever happen? I don't know.
Usually what follows drugs in a glass is some poor woman waking up
Yeah. Are they basically roofing themselves? And he does look like he's been roofied. The way he reacts to the drugs, it doesn't look fun. He looks like he's been roofied.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So for me, Travolta and Cage playing Castor Troy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because I'm gonna sneak into hates straight away. Travolta and Cage playing Archer.
I can get that. I can totally get that.
So Travolta and Cage playing Castor Troy, because that is the character they're having the most fun with.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, they even make a point of it in the film. You're still not having fun. You know, they keep repeating that line. Like, they're fully aware that Sean Archer is such a fucking trip.
Yeah.
I know his son died, but oh my God, you're a bit of a bummer, Sean. Everybody wants to hang out with fucking Castor. He's fun.
The action set pieces, I'm going to put them all in because they need to be in there. The action, as much as, like I said, we look at the stunt doubles now and we laugh and stuff. The fact that it's still practical action is always the best.
Yeah. Well, it just looks better. I would prefer to deal with stunt doubles and see practical effects than have it all digitized and where nothing has any impact. Like I mentioned earlier, the bit where the plane quite slowly goes into the hangar and everything explodes. With CG, it probably comes out the other side, it flies off, but everything has a weight to it when it's practical effects. So if it means we've got to deal with a couple of clearly dodgy stunt doubles, I'm absolutely for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really take you out of it, so I'm good with that.
No.
And finally, it's fuck me, I lost my third. I just deleted my notes.
Oh no.
I've lost my third. Move on.
Okay, fair enough. Hates, I've already mentioned a few of them. Alessandro Nicola as Pollux Troy, can't stand him. 2, I know there's a lot of dodgy sexual politics in this film, but sucking Cage's tongue, I'm just not sure if I needed to see that at all, especially so early in the movie. Yeah. So it's a bold move opening the film with, would you like to suck my tongue? Oh, we're going to watch him?
That thing was wet as well.
It was wet as fuck. And number 3, we mentioned right at the top of the podcast, Travolta's hands-on face move. I can't stand it. And it's both creepy, it's upsetting, it's weird. And you think about how much weird stuff is in this film. We mentioned, Nicolas Cage, like grab ass and a teenage girl. Why isn't that as gross as Travolta lovingly putting his hands down his kids' faces and his wife as well? It seems oddly even weirder when he does it to his wife, like a full-grown woman. I know it seems oddly condescending. I'd be like, what the fuck? That would ruin a relationship. Imagine you met the right girl, and you think, oh my God, we're going to settle down, and then one day she just does that, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Yeah, she goes, I just do that to people I love. We should probably see other people. I just pull the plug immediately.
Why is this dude putting his massive sausage fingers in my face?
That's the thing as well. Travolta's a proper hairy man. You notice in the film, he's got like the hairy fingers.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty hairy boy, but he's like next level. That kind of not quite. What's his name? From Hook. I'm doing it now. Jesus Christ! I was going to say Chris. No, the other one, the hairy one.
The hairy one. Who's Smee?
No. The star,
Williams.
Robin Williams. Jesus Christ!
Sorry, I was just doing it to you there.
Dude, you're such shit. For some odd reason, Christopher Robin jumped into my head. I was like, Christopher Robin isn't a hairy boy. This is ridiculous.
No,
but anyway,
I still stand. That was as bad as Sean Connery.
Oh, you are out of your fucking mind. Anyway, so he's got like the proper hairy fingers, which just adds to the creepiness when he does the hand down the face thing. So yeah, that's easy. My hates in this film are strong. As much as I love this film, the stuff I hate, I despise.
I'm with you because basically I've already said my number 1, which was Cage and Travolta playing Sean Archer. Mm-hmm. My number 2 is I mentioned it in my opening. The hand in the face thing is fucking awful.
Horrible.
Weird. And I am including all of them, not just the suck my tongue, but then you've got Cassavetes and Gina Gershon doing the brother-sister tongue kiss. Anything that involves tongues in this film, I think I'm a bit...
quite upsetting.
Yeah, not a fan, mate, not a fan.
Yeah, no, all that kind of weird sex stuff. Like you said, secretly the darkest is definitely the dude who killed his son coming back and unknowingly fucking his wife. That's really, really dark. Kind of gets swept under the rug. Almost played for laughs in this film. It's so dark.
How does she get over that as well? At the end,
I don't know. Surely, she's. Oh my God, I slept with him so many times. We would just We were fucking like every day, and it wasn't just normal sex, Sean. I'm so sorry. We were doing really weird butt stuff. I'm so sorry. Oh my god, that man killed my child, and he did weird butt stuff. It's like they got down. Like they weren't having sex. They weren't, they were fucking. They were fucking for sure, and it was getting weird. And there's just something she's going to have to live with, but it is what it is. Again, imagine the sequel, Face Off 2, and it's just her in just session after session talking through the sexual endeavors she had with the man who killed her son.
Say Face Off 2, butt stuff.
Butt stuff. Maybe it is called butt stuff.
Hey, I found my third.
Okay, go for it.
So we'll take it back. No, my third love is definitely they didn't go all in on the makeup when Cage has his face ripped off. You just see the little.
That is cool.
The little flash.
That is cool. Yeah.
Clap,
Bravo! Fucking Bo!
Yeah. And you just got it in Dr. Walsh's glasses, or you got it in. I thought that was really good. Yeah,
that is really cool. Yeah. Again, practical effects. They're fucking dope in this one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alternative titles in any country. Did they just fuck off like the dash? Not dash. It's slash, isn't it? It's face slash off. Surely in other countries, it's just called face fucking off, not literally face fucking off. You know what I mean?
No, mate. No. Right. Is
it face slash off everywhere? Face slash off hyphen something or another.
You might want, that happens once.
Okay.
Once.
All right.
Italy, face slash off, dash, two faces of a killer.
Yeah, that's a proper Italian title, that is.
Germany, inside the enemy's body, face slash.
Is that? Oh, again, that kind of plays up to the more sexual side of this film. That's for sure. Yeah,
but it's not face slash off inside the enemy's body. You get inside the enemy's body, face slash off.
That sounds like if Cronenberg made this film. If Cronenberg took this concept and made this film, that's what it would be called. It would have the German title, and it would be weird as fuck, or even weirder.
Well, you want weird? None of these other ones have anything to do with Face Off.
Okay, go for it.
Argentina, Counteract.
Oh, terrible.
Yep. Austria, In the Enemy's Body.
Again, it feels like the Cronenberg version.
Yeah. Brazil, The Other Face.
Yeah, okay, sure. But yeah, you kind of shit the bed there, Brazil. That's pretty bad.
Bulgaria, Borrowed Person.
I actually quite like that one. Borrowed person. I'm borrowed that person. Like, the line doesn't work in the same way.
The French Canadian title, Double Identity.
Yeah, it's a straight to DVD version, but sure.
Yeah. China, Change Face.
Yeah, I quite like Change Face.
That is just literal.
Yeah. It really is. Croatia. But then Face Off is also pretty literal. Change Face just, I don't know, it just sounds more comedic.
Croatia, Man Without Face.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
No,
because it's only briefly. Yeah. Like that's like this film where midway through like the operation, they accidentally misplace their faces, so they just run around not having faces, like not face off.
It's like Czech Republic kind of got only half of the facts for the title, so they just guessed the rest.
Okay,
because it was I'm guessing the facts came through and it was FAC, and then they went, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll just guess the rest. Facing. Oh
yeah. They definitely made up the second part. The fax machines conked out halfway through and like, fuck, we haven't got the whole facing. They're facing each other. Does that work? Facing. Okay, let's go with facing. Fair enough.
That's it.
Facing. Jesus Christ. Do you have any facts? There's got to be some decent facts for this film.
Yeah, we've skirted on a few, so
we have covered a few. Yeah.
So, but I will reiterate the one I said. Nicolas Cage and John Travolta spent 2 weeks together before filming to learn how to play each other. They decided on specific gestures and vocal cadences for each character that could be mimicked. Mm-hmm. You brought it up about the ridiculous chin line. John Travolta asked the writers if they were making fun of him with that line. They explained the caster was such a narcissist that he would hate having anyone else's face.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's weird with John Travolta because I was speaking to my wife about that. I was like, how handsome do you think? Both of them, in fact, because they've both been obviously kind of palmed off as leading men. And Travolta's much more, I guess, traditionally handsome, certainly back in the 70s and 80s. But he's got one of those faces where you only need to, like, tweak it a little bit and he could be quite ugly. Like everything's just like, it's just before he looks weird, everything just kind of stops, whether it be his, like you said, his ridiculous nose, his chin, all that jazz. It's like he's super handsome, but his features are so strong and so big that you can imagine, like in a family photo, all his brothers might be quite ugly, but he was the one where everything just kind of stopped at the right point. Whereas Nicolas Cage, he's not traditionally handsome in any respect, but we suspect he has something of an aura about him. That's what we're going with, at least. I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with all this, but here we are.
So you already said Schwarzenegger and Stallone were in mind to play the lead roles, but there was other pairings as well that were considered. So Michael Douglas, who was an executive producer for the film, because he was in the early 90s, Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford. Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin.
A very, very different movie, but yeah, sure.
Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin.
Not really buying that one.
No, this one. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Again, a very, very different film. And how the fuck, it'd be amazing if you convinced. Maybe you could have got them early 2000s when they were really making any old bollocks. Like if the paycheck was enough, maybe they would have done it. But the only one that's really jumping out to me is the first one.
Yeah, that first one would have been a completely that felt like a bit like Fugitive-esque.
Yeah, you got two like top tier actors really going for it. I can just totally imagine. The problem is, I don't know who would have been. I can't imagine Harrison Ford giving that big performance. But again, I feel like it'd be a very different film. It'd be a lot more sinister. Put it that way. That's for sure.
So we mentioned the over the rainbow scene. Adam listening to it on his headphones. That was John Woo's idea, not part of the original script. Paramount Pictures refused to finance the extra scene, and John Woo used his own money to pay for it. He was later paid back as the film turned out to be profitable. A similar scene can be seen in Hard Boiled as well.
Not sudden death.
Not sudden death, no.
Yeah. That was a clanger, admittedly.
And I said Hard Boiled, not Hard Target, so you just fucked that one up as well.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Obviously, I have no idea what's going on with those films.
What else have we got here? We were wrong about how they came up with the idea. It wasn't drugs in a glass.
No, that's a shame.
Co-screenwriter Mike Werb got the idea for the face surgery from a friend who had a hang gliding accident. They had to remove most of the skin from his face, reconstruct the bone matter, and put his face back on.
Yeah, I bet you that wasn't like a 2-day turnaround either. But just like, well, imagine if we just swapped your face for someone else's face. That'd be pretty fun, right?
Nick Cassavetes surprised John Woo by shaving his head for the role. Woo said it was just the image he wanted.
Oh, fair enough. Well, he looks the part in this film.
Yeah, but there was another one. What was the... Gina Gershon told John Woo that she wanted to shave her head for the role. He didn't like the idea.
See, they're obviously fucking lunatics. They're the ones who came up with the kissing thing. Like, they ad-libbed that. Yeah. Like, And the thing is, it was a shame because Gina Gershon's character, she was the one person in the film who reacted the right way. It's like when they have the big shootout at the end, and John Travolta's like, oh, honey, it's me. He's basically trying to sell on the idea that he's Castor Troy. And she's the only person who reacts in the correct way. She's like, whatever, like, stop wasting my fucking time. Basically, she just thinks he's full of shit. Surely that should be the standard response of everyone. I know they try and play up that Pollux Troy is like, he's really suspicious and stuff. But as soon as he sees his brother, he's immediately like, wait a minute, did you swap faces with Sean Archer? Like, everybody is suspicious as shit. Like, dude, nobody would be suspicious of that. Nobody would be like, even if he was acting weird, it would just not be, it wouldn't be the 100th thing you went to down the list where like, wait a minute, did you just swap faces, bodies, voices with that dude shot? Like, no, obviously that didn't fucking happen. Ridiculous. So Gina Gershon, I thought she was the one character making sense in this film, but then she did make out with her brother, which is properly mental. So she was both basically the most sensible and the most insane in this film.
And also, if there is an afterlife, she is fucking pissed right now because her biggest enemy is raising her son.
Yeah, but they had to go again. They kind of hinted at them having a relationship, and I wasn't, because you do have that moment with Nicolas Cage when he's really going for it, like, I'm Castor Troy, and he's kind of looking in the mirror and he pulls the face and stuff, and you can see that he's clearly warming to Gina Gershon's character kind of thing, and they have that kiss, don't they? And he kind of almost gets into it. It's like they kind of play off on the idea that he's forgotten himself. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm not Castor Troy.
So that's it,
but then they just kind of move on from it super quick.
Because the studio wanted them to sleep together in the film, but John Woo
didn't,
because he didn't want, because Sean Archer wouldn't.
Yeah. I like the idea, though, that at least for a second, he was like lost in the moment and lost in this new person he'd become, that he just starts kissing it kind of thing. But then kind of, I think they did the right thing. He pushed away. It's like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? But, you know, they obviously play on the idea, despite the fact that she kisses her brother, that she's actually quite likable.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Like I said, these things are always, they just hints out there's just not enough, despite the fact that this film is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. None of that stuff's given enough time, apparently.
Right, only a couple more. Many of the oil rig shots were done on a backlot because of the danger of creating explosions on a real oil rig. I mean, shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, and this is a film where everything explodes, so you have to be very careful.
In early drafts of the script, Archer went to Castor's mother's place to hide out. The writers wanted the mother to be played by either Elizabeth Taylor or Jack Nicholson in drag.
What the fuck? I mean, the first one's good. The second one, what the fuck?
I mean,
what the fuck is that about?
Take that with a pinch of salt.
That has to be, surely.
Somebody's putting that fact on for a fucking laugh. There's no way that's real.
They have to. The first one is actually quietly genius. The second one is so fucking left field. No way. I'm not having that.
Travolta and Hairspray.
I can't be having that. That's
it, really. Then
that's it. Well, with the legacy, I'm going to run a few quick, but basically I'm going to go into our scoring and rating for this film here, because I'd argue that this might be Cage's last truly great action role. This really was proof that John Woo could have worked in Hollywood. You mentioned the fact that obviously he'd done a few films before this, and they'd been successful to one extent or another. But they hadn't really felt like John Woo films until this one. And if anything, his two biggest hits are maybe the most John Woo movies of the bunch, this and Mission Impossible 2. It's just a shame that Paycheck absolutely shit the bed, I suppose. And I know this is me forcing this Heartland into a podcast, but it really is one of the most ludicrous acting face-offs of all time. It really is. Like, in terms of like Cage playing Travolta, playing Cage, and vice versa, there's no other film like it, and certainly no film where the two actors have gone to it to this level. So I really do think it stands out. But the big question is, in terms of his legacy, where's its position in the Beige Volvo trilogy? So you've got obviously The Rock, Con Air, and this. How do you rate them? So I've got the issue that, as we suspected last week, this is another 4-star film for me.
Yeah. So
we've got 3 films which are all 4-star. However, in my head, I've got a very clear idea of the order. It's slightly, it's not exactly what I expected, but I need your patented 10-point scale for it to make sense. So they're all 4-star films. This is a 7 out of 10. The Rock is an 8 out of 10. And against all odds, Con Air is a 9 out of 10. I thought it was going to be The Rock was going to be my favorite of the bunch. It was growing up. I fucking adore Con Air, rewatching it. Absolutely loved rewatching it. So I'm going to go on the record and say this is 7. The Rock is 8. Con Air is 9. They're all, I'm rounding up and down accordingly. So if I'm doing a 5-star system, they're all 4-star films. But they differentiate enough 7, 8, 9 for me, at least.
Okay, so again, 4-star for me as well. So
that's 4-star for all 3 films for you as well?
Yeah, all 3 films is 4-star. And I was, when we were discussing this just before we started recording, I was thinking about it. And I'm a 7, 8, and 9 as well, but I'm actually different.
Yeah.
The 7 is definitely Face Off.
Yeah.
I think maybe because, although it's a great film, the premise gets too ludicrous at some point, so it can't.
It does, and I think the issue is, as much as I enjoy it and as much as some of the charm comes from it, I mentioned earlier the fact that it feels like a 90s film in the way that the others don't. You have to accept the fact that this feels like a 90s film. And that will play out in the recommendations. It's easy to recommend because it's such an insane movie and so unique, but it does come with a caveat that you've got to, if you're like a 20-year-old and I'm telling you to watch this, it's like, all right, just be warned, this film is 90s as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't need that caveat with Con Air. If you're watching that in HD, I'm like, no, this film's fucking dope. It still looks amazing. It could have been made yesterday. This film could not have been made yesterday. This film was made in 1997 on the fucking snout.
Well, this is where we differ now, see, because Con Air is my 8. And The Rock is my 9.
But the thing is, it's close for me. I'm making the point simply because I was surprised because I thought my order was going to be that. I was sure of it. But maybe if you asked me a year from now, I might have changed my mind. I think it was just because I enjoyed Con Air maybe more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
Because The Rock, I was like, I'm definitely enjoying The Rock. I fucking love The Rock, and I still love The Rock. Whereas Con Air, I was a little bit on the fence. I was like, I don't know, this is going to have aged. Turns out it's aged beautifully, and I fucking adore it.
What sells The Rock for me is, the fucking James Bond dude.
Yeah, and that line. What was the line? And he's hanging upside down and he tells him to go fuck himself or something. That's my favorite bit of the film, for sure. I love it almost as much as sudden death.
Put it that way.
That classic John movie. No. The podcast hasn't been a disaster. We both just had like mini strokes at one point or another in the podcast. But the good thing is we both had the decency to both have them on the same podcast. Yeah. So yeah, you shat the bed. I made fun of it, but then I shat the bed as well, and we all had a good laugh. So it's absolutely fine. Everybody shit the bed. By the way, we've talked about this too much now. That you have to leave it in. This would be more mental if you removed the earlier bit. And like, what the fuck
if I remove anything, this podcast becomes 25 minutes.
Oh yeah, and it's like if you remove the slow motion out of Face Off, that film would only be like 32 minutes long. It's like we've not even mentioned the fact that half the film is shot in slow motion. We just accept it. It's like, oh yeah, that fucking kind of happens. But yeah. So I actually think this probably is a 100-minute movie stretched out to 2 hours 20 just by slow-mo.
In regards to Legacy, mind, I know we kind of we've butchered Legacy a bit this week, but we do need to mention for Legacy the fact that there is a sequel coming.
Is that really though? Is there really a sequel?
No, yeah. Adam Wingard, the guy that's done Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they were going to do a remake, but now they're doing a Legacy sequel, and I think
it has to be a Legacy sequel.
I think Nicolas Cage wants to come back.
You'd need both of them. The problem is they couldn't really do the action beats all that successfully in 1997
unless they bring, I don't know, they can't really bring Nick Cage back unless somebody uses his face because Castor Troy is dead.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And he's probably the most problematic. Like, I can imagine Nick Cage getting back into like fighting fit shape.
Yeah,
that ship has sailed for John Travolta.
You can't have.
That ship is done.
You can't have Castor Troy play somebody else. So what it'll have to be, from what I can guess, they'll probably have to do. I don't know. Castor Troy did something, so we need to bring him back.
That's a great, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure if I want to see it. I've never, you gotta remember, it's like this film was like nearly 30 years ago now, and it's like, do I want to see all that?
I don't want now 30-year-old sequels.
No. I mean, I say that they can work. Like, Top Gun's the perfect example. I know we feel differently about it. Top Gun is one of the best films of the 21st century.
I mean, a shit film did not need a shit sequel.
I mean, the thing is, the first one's like, okay, it's a decent film. The sequel is so much better. The sequel is something of an action masterpiece. But
you've got to caveat that with only from Liam, because it's not an action.
No. I'm not that film is up for Best Picture at the Oscars. I'm not.
Did it win?
Make no mistake, you're on the sideline when it comes to opinions on Top Gun Maverick.
Did it win?
No, it was never going to win. But the fact that it's even up for it.
Unless it wins, doesn't fucking matter.
People are going to be talking about Top Gun Maverick and what was achieved on screen 20, 30 years from now as being something truly unique.
So
but my point, I
totally agree. People will be talking about Top Gun Maverick, about how shit that film was.
I mean, that's absolutely wrong. And I know you're just trying to get a rise at me, so I'm going to ignore it. The point is, that is a Legacy sequel. And yes, Tom Cruise comes back, but Tom Cruise is a fucking unicorn because Tom Cruise somehow looks exactly the same as he did in 1987. The fact is, Nicolas Cage does not look exactly the same as he does in 1997. He just doesn't. He's just not as convincing. Look, Tom Cruise still appearing in Mission Impossible films and being completely, you just buy him in these films, despite the fact, he's 60 years old now, is utterly unique, not just in cinema, in nature. It shouldn't happen. It's the power of Scientology, apparently. But for the most part, I don't want to see aging action stars going back to these roles. I'm happy, especially with Face Off, and we've mentioned it already, it feels like a 90s film, and that's fine. Leave it in the 90s, because you would have to change the tone. Like I said, you couldn't have the weird sex stuff, which sounds like, do I want it in the film? It just adds to how odd this film is. I just think it's one of those films you should absolutely leave back in the 90s, personally. But that's just me.
As much as you blow Tom Cruise in all these episodes, we haven't really done much Tom Cruise, have we?
Well, yeah, it's the same as why I don't want to do more Star Wars films, because you just shit on them. And I'm like, I just get flustered and I'll get worked up about how much you hate Tom Cruise, despite the fact we're clearly talking about a fantastic performance. Like, imagine if we did Top Gun Maverick, you just shitting on that fucking masterpiece of a movie for 2 hours.
I'm not shitting on it just to get a rise out of you.
I know you don't like it, but can you see it, like, from an objective standpoint? Like, say if you take Maverick, for instance, if you don't like it, that's absolutely fair enough. Can you not see that objectively on screen? It is unfucking real. We've talked about in this film, the reason that so much of it works are the practical effects and that commitment to putting that on screen, and what they put people through to get that on screen is unbelievable. When I was watching it in the cinema, I'm just like, this is the example of why physical effects will never be bettered by CGI ever.
I totally agree.
Because it's the impact on the actors as much as what's going on around them. And it's not just you're seeing the plane, you're seeing the person in the plane and the impact that's having on them. It's just like, you just can't match it. And you'll never, ever get it with CGI.
Right, I'm going to need to bring you back now before we go.
Just be clear, I fucking love Top Gun Maverick. And yes, I do love Tom Cruise, despite the fact, I will admit, he's a fucking psycho. But on screen, he's ace.
Let's
back to the film.
Score and soundtrack.
Score and soundtrack. So John Powell, he's composed like scores for 70 plus feature films, but oddly, this was his first movie.
Yes,
which is absolutely insane. And while largely a successful one, he's gone to a career of mostly scoring animated movies. He did Ants. Remember Ants with a Z, with like Woody Allen and Sylvester Stallone? Yeah, like he scored that. Like that's a weird film. Like everybody's forgotten about Ants. Like it came out along. It's another one of those films like Deep Impact and Armageddon. It just came out. What's that?
Did it come up with A Bug's Life?
Yeah, it came out alongside A Bug's Life. Yeah, and everyone remembers, and Bug's Life isn't one of the best Pixar films, but that's the one that's gone to live on, and everyone's just kind of forgotten about Ants. Anyway, he did Road to El Dorado, Happy Feet, the Ice Age movies, Kung Fu Panda movies, which are legit amazing, by the way, and the scores for those films are absolutely fantastic. But he's, and I think he won an Oscar, or certainly was up for an Oscar for How to Train Your Dragon, another fantastic film. But he also did Star Wars Story, another underappreciated Star Wars film, one you might actually enjoy. But to bring it back to the score for this film, I think, it feels very 90s. It's amazing that it's his first movie score. But the fact that one of the songs in this film is called This Ridiculous Chin is genius. I just love the fact that one of the songs is called. But yeah, John Powell is not one who's a name that's come up on the podcast before. And again, I think that's largely because of his subsequent influence on emphasis on animated movies, but fair play to him. What a fucking first score to have on your CV. Face Off.
Yeah.
Who goes from Face Off to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make animated movies for the rest of my career now? Absolutely bonkers. In terms of video games, while there wasn't an official Face Off video game, there was a game called Stranglehold, which I used to love, by Midway Studios, starring Chow Yun-fat and actually directed by John Woo, made for the 360, and it still looks great to this day. Everything explodes. It's very much in the mold of Max Payne, where you dive through the air, everything's slow motion, everything explodes. You basically just take that movie and just put Nicolas Cage and John Travolta in, and it works. And we've said it a bunch of times. I don't want to see Nicolas Cage doing a Face Off 2 in the cinema. Do I want to see him doing voiceover work on Face Off the video game? Maybe. Will it happen? No, but it is what it is. If we're not going to go that route, I would go with basically who would I want to win it? I would have Remedy doing a much more cheerful, if no less violent version of Max Payne, basically. So they had the rights to Max Payne. I know they can't do Max Payne anymore because Max Payne is actually being bought by Rockstar. But Remedy, they're the guys who do Alan Wake and Control, some of my favorite video games of the generation, or the last couple of generations. And they're also great at doing story as well. So get Remedy. They're fantastic at action. They're great at doing slow motion. They're brilliant at writing. I'm not sure if you've seen the trailer for the new Alan Wake game, Alan Wake 2. It looks absolutely phenomenal. Think of those production values, and now you're just banging Nicolas Cage, and you could really dig into some of the section. You could have it so he's he doesn't die at the end, and have this whole spend more time with him and the family, and it gets really weird. That'd be awesome. But that's what I would go with. The obvious answer is the John Woo directed Midway game Stranglehold, but I'm going to go for Remedy.
I'll let you finally win one, right?
Fantastic. I felt pretty good about this one. I was like, dude, the one that exists is solid, but I was like, Remedy feels like the perfect answer, but I've been here before. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting it this week. And then you fucking just magic up something awesome.
No, I'll let you win because
Let me win. Condescending prick.
Because I had Stranglehold.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It's a John Woo fucking game. It's what's his name? Inspector Tequila from Hard Boiled. It's the same character. Yeah. All you had to do, like you said, was make the bad guy more prominent, and you've got Face Off. So I would, and then I wasn't a huge fan of Control, but I love Control. I do like Remedy as a developer, as a developer, and I like Alan Wake, and I'm looking forward to if Alan Wake 2 comes out on the PlayStation.
Alan Wake 2's coming out on PlayStation.
Oh, there you go then. So yeah,
I love Alan Wake, man. I fucking love it's just combining my favorite. Like, I love the action. I love the fact that it's basically a Stephen King novel brought to the screen. Like, Alan Wake is ostensibly just Stephen King if he also got into fights with his monsters, which isn't far from some of the stuff they do in the Dark Tower, where he writes himself into his own story. So it's not a million miles away from it anyway. But yeah, Remedy are a great developer. But that game Stranglehold, it kind of it's disappeared from the map, and it was one of those kind of evolutionary dead ends for video games where for a while it was all the rage, like the slow motion diving and the shooting and stuff, and then it's just kind of disappeared. And I'm like, I'm kind of ready for that to come back. I would love to have a Stranglehold 2. Will it happen? Absolutely.
It was one in development, wasn't it? It was called Gunner, but Midway kind of just Midway had all kinds of problems and they went under and stuff, but it didn't make sense. Like, they were trying for a while. There were a bunch of video games where they had movie stars in them. There was one with Vin Diesel, The Wheelman, that was half a great game. The stuff in the car in that game was fucking dope. It was the open world. It was too ambitious for its own good. Because when Vin Diesel was in a car and it was like vehicular action stuff, whatever, it was amazing. But then as soon as you got out of the car, you're like, oh, well, this is just a shit GTA, which was a shame. But the one I liked was Jet Li's. Was it Rise to Honor?
Oh yeah. I thought that was a rough game. A lot of these are rough. The thing is, the best example is Stranglehold.
Yeah,
it is. Like, it was directed by fucking John Woo. It is a John Woo movie with all the other stuff. It's just all pure action. And Chow Yun-fat was actually in it. It's such a great game. Like, really early 360. I think it came out like 2007 or something like that.
Yeah, 2007, because it was PlayStation 3, I think.
Yeah, PlayStation 3 and 360. So that's a really good game. I'd be very interested. I suspect, from a mechanic perspective, it would probably hold up because, again, it's not like it was overplayed at the time, and it was the reason it went away. But it's not been done for since Max Payne 3, the Rockstar one. Yeah. That obviously still had the slow motion stuff, but really kind of leaned into the story. But I don't think we've had so much bullet time since then.
Not off the top of my head now.
So maybe it's time for a comeback. That's another great game, by the way. Max Payne 3 is
Max Payne 3 is great.
Really good. I know a lot of people have a soft spot for the original 2, but again, they feel like they're of a time in the same way that Face Off is. It's like, they're fun, but they belong in 2000, right down to the visuals, the style, everything. Whereas like Max Payne 3 still feels like a modern blockbuster to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, I got caught. And now this is weird because we've already done the
We've already scored this, so let's just call this section recommendations.
Recommendations. Like I said earlier, recommended with caveats. It's a totally dumb, super absolutely outrageous 90s action flick. There's nothing else quite like it, but it does need to come with a caveat that it is very fucking 90s. That's the only caveat, but it is still great.
Totally agree. Like, you would, like all the others, you would recommend them, but this is 90s AF, as we've said. So
100%. So yeah, that's been Face Off this week, and that's been the Beige Volvo Trilogy, which has been pretty fun. We're going to go to something a bit more traditional now.
Is it your choice next week?
It is my choice next week, and it's taken us ages to get here. But with The Dial of Destiny coming out in the cinema soon, it seems right that we should at least
Indiana Jones Chronicles.
or the fucking Crystal Skull. No, we haven't done The Last Crusade yet, so we really need to get that out of the way. I am interested in going back to the Crystal Skull at some point, because I have a lot of opinions about that film. But and I know we've gone pretty mental with our ordering of, say, like the Star Wars saga and stuff, but we have to do Last Crusade first. And if nothing else, they've all just popped up on Disney Plus, and I've not seen The Last Crusade for some reason. It's the one I've seen the least. I know I really like it. Like, no surprise, this is going to get a good fucking review. But I've seen Raiders and Temple of Doom a lot more than I've seen The Last Crusade. Yeah. So I'm actually looking forward to it.
I think for me, Last Crusade it hit me in my film prime, as it was.
Yeah.
That was the one that I watched more of and the one I gravitated more towards. So
well, that's the one we can remember coming out. Like, the other ones came out too early. Obviously Raiders was out before I was born, and was Temple of Doom like 82, I think? I mean, it was the year I was born. I was 84.
I thought it was 84.
Yeah, I think it was 84. But anyway, it was already out. It was just this pre-existing thing. Whereas Last Crusade came out in 89. I've got memories of it being a thing, of it being released. I didn't see it in the cinema, sadly. But I remember, it was the first Indiana Jones film that came out when we were, we could remember it, basically. So, yeah, and I know a lot of people, this is their favorite one. And I always said growing up that Raiders was my favorite, but it's been a long time, so it's always been close. And as I've proved with this podcast, I would have swore before we started the trilogy that The Rock would have been my favorite one. Yeah. And fucking lo and behold, Con Air is taking its place.
Are you trying to set me up, by the way?
What was that?
Last Crusade, starring Harrison Ford and Bond.
Oh, yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? So, well, you've got a whole week to prepare for it. You'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, dude, this has been Face Off, the end of the Beige Volvo Trilogy. There we go. And next week, please do join us for Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. So thanks as always for listening, and catch you guys soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Oh, and before we forget, here is Rob with all the finer details. Got to get through those, dude.
Yeah, so basically you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at HeyYouGuys80s. We're also on email at HeyYouGuys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any recommendations, any corrections or omissions we may have missed from any of the films that we've covered. Just get them in. And also, if you could, please leave us some 5-star reviews. That would really help us. And we'd like to thank, as always, Darry Fletcher at Darry Doodles for the fantastic artwork that we're now producing. Thanks for that, mate.
Cheers, Darry.
Yeah. And thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.
Cheers. Bye.